Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Show with your host, Jeff Lopes.
We are live on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super stoked to have on. We just had a great little conversation to start. John Lee, what's up, brother?
Awesome, brother. Really good. Really good. Thanks for having me on the show.
This is a big honor, man. I mean, in the business world, you've accomplished quite a bit, and we're going to go through quite a bit of your story. What are you up to now? I always let the audience, I like giving the audience an understanding of what you're up to business-wise now, where you're doing, where your ventures are, and then we'll start dipping in different parts of your story and let the conversation flow. So what are you up to now?
So I took my company public in 2019. And so my vision now is to give self-development and the entrepreneur mindset to everybody in the world. So we actually work on a platform right now. It's called Wealth Dragons, and it's an app as well, so people can download it and they can learn all the entrepreneurial skills for free. It's all free. And yeah, that's what I want to do, because I spent my whole life learning there's a difference between formal education and self-education. Yeah. And so, you know, I think formal education is important because it gives our kids the fundamentals, but I also think self-education is also important as well. So the soft skills, the business skills, the financial skills, the health skills, so all those things I've just put into one place. And so, you know, our goal is to take that. My goal is to take it to $1 billion valuation in the next 10 years. So maybe I look back 10 years from this and say, hey, did we get to $1 billion valuation? So yeah, that's what we're working on. And that's what our focus is. So
Welch Dragons it officially started in 2019. Give me a little understanding. So
no, it was an older company than that. We started that over a decade ago.
Oh, but you went public in 2019.
Correct.
So with the brand and the actual platform, I was on it just playing around with it and stuff like that. You actually, the way I describe it, or what I learned from it, is you essentially put other coaches' platforms on there as well. It's a kind of an educational school for entrepreneurs.
Well, it's two things. So, yeah. I mean, I meet a lot of people that've got some great knowledge and some skills. Let's say, for example, you know, there's people in Clubhouse where I'm sort of, you know, working with people right now. Let's say they can do a program on public speaking skills. That's one skill that's not taught in school, in a way that communication is important. So I'll find someone who can do that. They would create some kind of step-by-step training, like an e-learning course, and they would put it into Wealth Dragons, and people can go in. They can consume that content for free.
That is awesome.
You know, so I mean,
so it's not a membership based. It's a totally free platform.
Free. You can go in there and you can watch people's content. And some people, and it depends on the creator. Some of them give it for free. Some of them want to charge. But I always recommend that, you know, most of the stuff on there is you can go through a lot of the content, and it's you know, really, really good that you can just learn some things from people where, you know, you're extracting that person's knowledge in a systematic way that gets results.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's dive into the one thing you talked about there is educational level. Where's your educational level? Like, I mean, coming from you were born in the UK. Was education a huge aspect of your upbringing with your parents? Was something they tried to push or
Oh, definitely. Yeah. My Chinese parents, they always want your son to be a doctor or an accountant or a lawyer. And unfortunately, I'm not smart enough for any of that stuff. So I became an entrepreneur.
So did you actually, can you do any continuing education, or you went directly as a young individual right to the entrepreneur?
No, I mean, I did go to university. I got a degree in animation. So I worked in the film industry for many years, in the games industry for many years. Yeah, I was an animator. That's why I asked you about the DC stuff, because I still have friends that are working those movies. One of my best friends animated the Hulk and the Avengers.
Well, that's a pretty cool little aspect there. How long did you work in that industry for?
Oh, about, I would say 4 years-ish, 4 or 5 years.
Very good. Do you ever plan of getting back as an entrepreneur into any of those industries?
Oh yeah, definitely.
The industry is a massive industry right now, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, so one of the reasons why I got into film is I love film, but then you need money for film. So I thought, why not become an entrepreneur and then make my own film? So I just finished a feature film with a script. So, you know, watch this space.
That is interesting. Do you mind me asking what kind of genre or what kind of film is it? You don't have to give details, but what area you're talking into?
Without giving too much away, have you seen The Pursuit of Happiness?
Yeah.
Will Smith? Yeah. So it's kind of one of those stories. It's a story of the underdog. It's a story of someone. It's basically based on my book. So if you've not read my book, it's called The Wealth Dragon Way. Yeah. So the book came out, so the film is about the book.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So growing up in the UK, I was reading a little article on yourself that your parents had a takeout restaurant and whatnot. Did you work in the restaurant? So in a way, you were brought up in an entrepreneurial family. That's a big water bottle. I love it.
Oh, 2 liter, man. You gotta, it's hydration. Yes and no. I mean, I was working in my mom's Chinese takeaway as a dishwasher, but
Okay.
it wasn't really it's more of a graft business. You got to put a lot of hard work into it to get the results.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we are not, I wouldn't say an entrepreneurial company, but definitely, self-employed.
Self-employed, yeah. Which is, I mean, a lot of our reality is a lot of our ancestors and whatnot were essentially entrepreneurs, but exactly you said, they're more self-entrepreneurs, self-employed, because they would work in the business for their whole life, right? So with yourself, when you started venturing in, what age did you actually get your first venture and actually start as an entrepreneur?
Oh God, I'm asking me to think back now. So I started entrepreneurship when I was 21 years old. That's when I started to really learn about, education. And I found about this whole thing about self-development. And then I obviously went to university, and I remember my friend gave me this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I read the book, and it talked about, the difference between active income and passive income. So in 2005, when I was on 24, 25 years old, I was really kind of, taking action, and that, because you spend a long time studying, but then that's just procrastinating, and then you start taking action. So I'd already had 4 years of like self-development knowledge rather than formal education. Yeah. And so my first venture I went into was property. And so, I made my first million at the age of 27 through real estate. And, and you probably remember this in 2008 when we had the crash, that's when I was buying a lot of the properties. When everyone was selling, I was buying, right? Because I knew that I could buy them like at half the price, because no one wanted the properties, only to realize that the properties would increase in price over time. So, that was a big thing for me, because, I learned about, if you want to make money, you want to be successful, all successful people have assets. So things that increase in value, and not only assets, I learned about income producing assets. So you buy something that not only grows in value, but pays you an income as you hold this asset. So, I started doing that in 2005, start investing in property. So that was my first venture.
Yeah. So are you still actively in the real estate market as well?
Yes, I still buy. Not as active as I used to, but because I'm known for that field. A lot of the agents know me. A lot of the investors know me.
So I'm still. Opportunities always come to you.
Yeah, I'll still buy properties. If they come along, if they're good deals, I'll buy them. But it's not my sort of main focus. But that's where you should put money. If people are listening to this, like, where do I put my money? Definitely start investing in property.
Now that's something we talked about before we went on air. That's something I'm very passionate about is the property, and exactly what you said is the passive income from it. Because I focus on the vacation properties, where I find the vacation rentals is a great asset. You're not looking at somebody dwelling in your property for 7-8 months without paying. With that aspect of the real estate part, what advice would you give to a young entrepreneur? I mean, I understand how I started, but what advice would you give to a young entrepreneur looking to getting into the real estate and not having the initial funds or something like that to start? What steps would they get to get to their first property?
So do what I did. I didn't have the money. Yeah. So here's one thing I learned is that when you find the deal, the money will find you. So one of the first deals I bought was it was on the market for 185,000. I bought it for 85,000 and I sold it for 185,000. So I made 100 grand, just by using other people's money. Yeah. So I would find investors would give me the deal. And this one lady gave me 85,000 and I bought that property and I paid her the money back with the interest once I sold the property, and what's left became my capital. So there's never a lack of finances. There's only a lack of creativity. Right? You got to be creative when you start, looking for this stuff.
Yeah, I love that. With your current company, Welch Dragons, do you have investors? Like you said, you're publicly now. With that brand and that company, where is the next steps for that company? You said you want to get into the billion. Is there other avenues you want to bring in as revenue with different areas or different focuses with that company? Oh yeah,
I mean, it's a whole ecosystem. Yeah. I mean, I mean, that's just the first part of it. If you kind of, any business, like, especially if it's technology, which is ours, a text and app, right? So people can go, they can download, if they want to learn public speaking, type in public speaking, they want to learn about online marketing, they want to learn about sales skills, whatever it is, you can just go and just look for it, and it's just readily available. Some of the instructors charge, some of them give it for free, right? But now you have a choice, you see.
Yeah.
So, we have people like, Kevin Harrington on there. You have a Robin Sharma. You've got the Jim Quicks on there. Some of the, biggest names in the self-development world. And so for me, it's about, my goal is to make this education available to all, right? Because sometimes when you want to learn, you have to pay, you pay a lot of money for a degree, like a business degree, like $100 grand. Yeah. But if you want to self-education, it's equally as expensive. So what if you can't afford that? Well, why don't I just make this education available to everybody? And some people will take it, some people won't, but that's my mission. Like it was never taught to me at school. And I thought, why don't I make this education available to everybody in the world right now?
Yeah. I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, John. If there's two types of, and we're going to dive into that. There's two types of mentors. There's direct and indirect mentors. And sometimes the most valuable are the indirect mentors, is from a book or a platform like yourself, is learning, and that person becomes a mentor to you, not focusing on them as a mentor, but actually learning their process and learning from them. So I appreciate that platform. In your process, have you had mentors along the way?
Oh yeah. My first mentor was Ying Tan. And I'll tell you a funny story, Jeff. I had to pay money to have him mentor me. Guess how much he charged me? 10,000 pounds for 2 days. I didn't have the money. I sold my car. When I sold my car, my ex-girlfriend, well, my girlfriend at the time, she said to me, "Oh, it's a scam and you shouldn't do this. And, it's a waste of money." But that's the funny thing. When these people at that time that say it's a scam, it's a waste of money, when you finally make it, they then ask you, well, how did you do it? So I did have a lot of mentors along the way, and I think people should invest in their education. But obviously, if you've got the means to do that, great. If not, that's why I created a platform. So there's so many people. Like, obviously, if you're working with people one-to-one, there's only so many people you can work with one-to-one. Yeah. And I have 5 million people that follow me on social media. I'm like, oh my God, I feel so bad that I can't serve everybody one-to-one. Why not just build something, take all my mentors, take all my, people have given me advice, and just, learn from the people that taught me. Like, there's a guy called Vincent Wong, and he wrote a book called Property Entrepreneur. It's a best-selling book. And he's a guy that taught me a lot of this property stuff, like moving on. Yeah. So, I thought, why don't we just extract that information from his head, put it into a place where people can consume it?
Yeah. I love that. I'm going to put, now with yourself, you're obviously based in the UK. How much time have you spent in the US and Canada and travel and educational, like you said, public speaking, all that stuff? Is that a big part of you as well, the public speaking aspect? Obviously in the last year has changed, but was that a big aspect of your life?
Yeah, because, being an author, people read the book and then they say, "Can you do a keynote?" And I have to fly to like Singapore or Malaysia or Dubai or Australia or New Zealand. Vegas, I did a keynote in Vegas, and I haven't done one in Canada yet, but I visited Canada. That's why I say it's a beautiful place, because you got amazing Chinese food there.
When was the last time you were in Canada?
About 3 years ago. So I took my parents
Which
there.
part of Canada?
I think is it Toronto?
Yeah,
of Toronto, and then we went to Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
We went up, and there was about 3 hours journey, and then we took a plane to Vegas. And I took my parents to see Celine Dion in concert. So yeah,
that is another Canadian. She's a Canadian.
Yeah, amazing show.
Yeah. So with your aspect in Toronto, do you have any family in Canada?
No.
No. Okay. No. Are you're married?
Yeah, I'm married. Yeah.
How many children? Do you have any children?
One
How
daughter. She's 2.5 right now.
Oh, so she's a little one still.
Oh yes.
How is, they always say a daughter. I had my first child was a daughter. How does that impact your life?
Oh God, all my friends who had kids, they always say to me, I truly understood what the word unconditional love means now. Being a father. Like before, I was like, okay, we're flying to Australia. Let's go and spend a month there, right? That's what my schedule would be like. Yeah. But now when my publicist, my manager says to me, "Hey, John, we want someone to go fly to New Zealand or fly to Singapore." And I say to them, okay, in my schedule, can I get there and back in 24 hours? If I can, it's a yes. If I can't, then I'm not doing the gig. Right. So because now it's like, I want to get there and come back and spend time with my family. Or if they can't do that, I say, okay, well, I need my tickets to fly my entire family out. So they pay for all first class flights, business class flights, for a week. And then I'll take my family with me. But it's not so good traveling so much with the kids because, it just messes up the body clock. But yeah, it's in terms of like priorities, that is like, for example, I always take my daughter to school every morning. Like I haven't, you know, I've had nannies before and, you know, people to do that stuff, but I want to do that. I want to spend that personal time. I want to be seeing her coming out of the nursery with this big smile saying, daddy, 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 look. And, you know, like those moments, those inches when they're growing, I don't want to miss that. Even though I could hire a nanny and say, hey, you know what, take care of my kid. But I don't think that's taking ownership, you know? So it's a lot more work. Of course it is. And my wife, she's amazing at like just taking care of my, you know, of my daughter. She's just so supportive of all the things I do. So I try and, like you say, you're 3 till 7, that's that eating time, you know, this is my time with her. So it's like, what matters is just seeing them grow. That's what matters.
I got a smile from ear to ear. I love everything you're saying, because you're saying it with such glee, like you're glowing inside talking right now, which I love so much, because there's a few things you said there. It is something I'm very, very passionate about, is dinner time. And as your daughter gets older, and if you do have more children, that dinner aspect of, like, my kids are 12 and 14, and being able to have an open conversation with them during a meal is so precious as they get older, because especially with pandemics, with virtual learning, there's so many areas as a parent you have to be actively aware of what's happening from mental health and other issues. So being able to have that open dialogue and conversation, be able to be around, there's nothing more precious for a family than sitting around a meal and just having an open conversation and smiling and talking. So I appreciate that aspect. And there's one little stat that a lot of people aren't aware of that I've learned years back is, and I think you understand it so clearly, and I appreciate that as a father, is 80%, they say 80% of the FaceTime you have with your children is before the age of 18. So if a lot of parents understood that stat and appreciate, like you said, it's so easily to focus still on growing your company to that $1 billion and all that stuff and spending a month here and spending a month here, but you're not going to allocate or get back that time you have with your children. And I appreciate how you're saying, like, exactly, I'm in the same situation where we could have other people assisting us and helping us, but I still want to be hands-on and be able to do that. And I appreciate picking up my kids from school, and I appreciate it's that mindset, is a lot of people have to reshift their mindset, where I always hear a lot of dads like, oh, I hate this, is like, oh, I got to go pick up my kids. No, you get to pick up your kids. Having that mindset and that reshift of understanding that I don't have to be home for dinner. I get to be home for dinner. And I think people have to appreciate that. Are your parents still around with us?
Yeah, my parents still around. Yeah.
Are they live close to you? Locally?
No, they live about 3 hours away from here, but they do come down occasionally. You know, I mean, you know, during the whole Christmas period, and I mean, right now it's a bit hard because in the UK, but every Christmas they normally come down and we spend time together. So yeah.
Do you talk to your parents on a regular basis over the phone and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we FaceTime quite a lot. You know, they want to see, my daughter. So yeah.
I think it's another aspect too, is having the opportunity to spend the time with your grandparents and stuff like that, because like I said, the time is limited and something we can't get back, so I appreciate that as well.
Well, that's why I took them to Canada. You know, every year before lockdown, we'd be a family trip in one location, and so, you know, it'd be Canada and it'd be Vegas and it would be like, you know, Bali, and so, you know, I do make it like at least 2 weeks in that year. Like, I've got that precious time. I pay for everything.
I love
you
that.
know, and it's just that it's important. It's really important.
Yeah. Family is obviously, I mean, just by the way you're talking, family is a huge part of you. How long have you been married for now?
Oh, about 7 years now.
Yeah, time flies. I just passed 17. How old are you, John?
How old am I? How old do you think I am?
See, it's hard to tell with Oriental people. You always look so young, right? So I'm going by your achievements. I would say you're in your late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
But you've been married for a very short time and you have a very young daughter. So it all depends on career-wise, right? I would say late 30s. How old are you?
Yeah, 39.
Yeah. So you're born. I'm 4 years older than you, so not too far. So we grew up in the same era. So now, with the UK, growing up in the UK, cultural wise, how was that? I mean, is it very, like, I know in Toronto, Canada, when you came to Toronto, Canada, you'll see it's a massive multicultural society where you want Chinese food, you got Chinese food. You want Italian food, you got Italian food. I grew up in a high school where it was like every race. Like I just had a gentleman on, Stephen Harris, I mean, great individual from Nigeria, on our podcast. And I grew up with a bunch of guys from Nigeria. Like you had such this great mix of culture and understanding. How was it growing up in the UK?
UK was, I mean, the little town that I grew up in was quite tough actually. I was the only Chinese kid at school, so of course there was a lot of racism, there was a lot of bullying, but that's just how things were back then. So it was tough. I mean, it was something that, but I guess it makes you tougher, it makes you stronger, right?
100%.
I mean, it shapes the person you are today. And people always say to me like, if you could change anything, what would you change? I wouldn't change anything.
Never.
Because the things that happen for a reason to shape the person you are today.
I love that. I love that. That's one thing I always say, John, is everything in life, or every person in your life. It's funny. We was having this conversation yesterday with an individual, and we were talking about individuals and their purpose in your life. And this individual, they came to me and we were just having this conversation where they had a friend for almost 10 years. And for some reason, his friend just stopped talking to them and moved on. And they're like, they're trying to understand what happened. And my understanding, what I explained to them was, everybody has a purpose in your life, whether they're in your life for a day, whether you're at a grocery store and they just pass by you with a smile and they just cheered up your day. Everybody has a purpose in your life. And I agree with every moment in your life has a purpose to. It's just how much you take that purpose or that moment to learn or educate yourself, or to improve yourself from it. So I appreciate that as well. So as everything is going, in the UK, are you guys still in lockdown?
Yeah, 4th lockdown right now.
Yeah, that's what we are in Toronto. We officially started yesterday in Ontario. They call it a state of emergency. It's incredible. So as an entrepreneur, you're seeing a lot of small businesses struggle and stuff like that. Where's your mindset with small businesses? And I have my mindset with advice, but what advice would you give people that are struggling right now? Because the small business industry is really struggling. This is a global pandemic. When I'm talking about global, I'm talking about the business world. A lot of people are just struggling and losing their businesses, from restaurants to gyms. Like, that's what we deal with. We deal with 1,800 gyms, and once again, all the gyms are closed. So where and what advice as a successful entrepreneur would you give small businesses at this moment?
Well, I'll tell you, I was one of those businesses that got hit. One of my businesses is an events company. So we run a lot of events, a lot of conferences. And of course, now you're not allowed to run events. And even if you can run events, you've got to be like 10 meters apart. I'm exaggerating there, by the way.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really work as an event. So my advice to all business owners is, you've got to think about the pivot, right? So you got to think about, okay, if I can't do that, what can I do? People think about things, what they can't do. Okay, what can you do and how can you adapt it? So of course, we naturally, I never thought you could run like, for example, this weekend we have an event. We have over 10,000 people registered for one of our events this weekend. So to put an event of that scale on in real life would cost a fortune. Now I can jump on Zoom and have all these people come, and then they listen to our keynotes and our speakers, and it's great, and it still works. So you got to look at where the value add is and where the pivot is. Because, it took us quite a few months to actually realize, well, actually, maybe events are not going to come back anymore, and maybe we should do something else. And so luckily, I was able to switch that pretty fast. And I remember the first time my promoter, my manager said to me, John, you got to run this show. I said, why? Because if you don't, all these people are going to start asking for refunds for the tickets. And I said, I don't know. And his name's Craig. And I said, I don't know about this, Craig. He's like, I don't think people get the same experience. They'll not value it. And I'm not sure. But I said, John, just try it and see how it works. I'll tell you, we put it on. And I never thought people would stay live for like 12 hours watching me on the screen. And they did. And that's when I had one of those epiphany moments. Like, oh my God, like, why did I not do this earlier? Yeah. And so it just pivoted that my entire events business is all fully online now, all of it, after 10 years. Of doing physical flying around the world. I don't have to fly anywhere anymore. I can just stay here. And, my daughter, I can see my daughter during the breaks and play jigsaw with her and come back up and then carry on the present. So it's just amazing that I'm able to, blessed to see that in every crisis there's an opportunity. And I always say this in my interviews, there's a word in Chinese called wei ji, and it's made up of 2 characters, right? And the word spells crisis if you put the 2 words together. If you take off one word, this word spells danger. And if you put the other word, this word spells opportunity, right? So danger, opportunity, both words spell crisis. That means in every crisis situation, there's an opportunity. So can you see like in 2008, I saw the opportunity. Everyone was selling, right? There was mortgage products out there where you can buy a house and refinance the next day. So I decided to take advantage, not take advantage, but have the knowledge to be able to utilize that. And I guess when success is when preparation meets the opportunity, right? You've heard that many, many times.
Yeah.
So, for years I've been sort of, practicing, if you will. Now the Clubhouse come out, I thought, oh my God, like people say, John, like every room I go into, you're always a moderator. How do you do this? It's a natural thing for me now. I spent 15 years honing my voice, honing my talents, sharpening the saw. So when something like Clubhouse comes along, I can just go on there and bang and just talk, So it's one of those things where, like, don't be in freeze mode, like, oh my God, this has happened, and don't like focus on, okay, the government's going to bail me out, or the election, or this and that. No, you got to create your own economy, right? If you don't do it, no one else is going to do it. So make sure you do it. Look for that opportunity. Look for that silver lining. Look at the thing, like, ask yourself, what am I not seeing right now? When I asked myself that question, I thought, oh my God, how am I going to get all these people? What am I not seeing right now?
Yeah.
Right. And the moment you start asking yourself the question, you'll start to find the answer.
Yeah. It's constantly, like, when we went on air prior, I was explaining my first business, one of my main companies, Camora, where we do sell directly to wholesale to gyms. And this business, 15 years, we've reshifted, we re-strategized this company 4 or 5 times. So during the pandemic is one opportunity I had to reshift. And also with the other company, True Blue Homes, the vacation rentals, during the pandemic, STA, short-term accommodations, were all shut down in Ontario, Canada here. So we had to reshift, and I had to find a loophole in the system to allow renters to come in as well during that period. So you're constantly learning how to reshift, and you find opportunities, right? So I appreciate that aspect. So when was the first event you did live virtual? So this is going to be your second big one?
No, the first one would have been in March.
So it was right when the pandemic really started.
Yeah. Because I just finished my tour out in Australia. We flew back and landed in January, and that's literally the day I flew back. That's when we had a net, like basically things were locking down.
So you're looking at around March 18, 17, give or take.
Yeah, because when you do events, you have to plan in advance, right?
Yeah,
you can't
100%.
just do an event and then do
it.
It's like a 3 or 4 months, planning. And so, like, as we were planning it, like, we did our lowest, like, okay, I said, okay, I'll do it only if we test it. So instead of having all these people, let's do it with a small group and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Right. Because if they all start complaining, if they didn't get a lot of value, if they didn't learn anything, they didn't enjoy it, then I'm not going to do it. Right. And so luckily it turned out okay.
And how many have you done so far?
What, virtual events till now?
Yes. Yeah.
Over 100.
Oh, since March?
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that number.
So now we do approximately 2 to 3 a week now.
Interesting.
That's not just me, by the way. I have a whole,
network.
I have a lot of instructors that do things. It's not just me. I mean, I do the big ones. So for example, I have an instructor for real estate. I have an instructor for public speaking. I have an instructor for, stock trading. So I don't do them all myself.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, but we've done over 100 since lockdown.
Very cool. And this is this is all through a platform. This is not through your Wealth Dragons, is it?
No, this is a different platform. What's
the platform called? What's the platform called, first off?
Well, our platform is called Wealth Dragons, but we put the app's called Wealth Dragons.
So it is through the same app.
Yeah. So if you go to App Store or Apple Store, just type in Wealth Dragons, you can download it and you can see all the things on there. Yeah,
very, very, very cool. So when's your next event?
This weekend.
Now, who do you have guest speaking on there? Like, give me like, I don't know.
Example. We have a lot of my friends. We have people like Elena Cardone, she's a good friend of mine. We have like a Sharon Lecter, they call her, a Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
We'll have like a Gary Henderson, a Vincent Wong. We'll have a Jim Quick, who's, for those of you who don't know Jim, he's done a lot of the consulting with Elon Musk and the Oprahs of the world and some of the big time actors. As well. So we got some big names coming up. That
is awesome. So as 2021 hit, and I mean, this is the reality, because I find 2020, 2021 just blended right through. As an entrepreneur, you don't look at the day, you to continue. And one thing I always say is I hate New Year's resolutions, because if you can't have a resolution any time of the year, why would you plan it for 2000 or plan it for one particular day? And I'm finding as I'm talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people thought 2021 would be a restart, a refresh moment. And that's it's just the mental aspect of if looking at a day saying, okay, 2020 was a tough year, 2021 we're starting fresh. Reality is it's not going to be fresh. We're still going through the cell pandemic. We're still going through dark times, and that original energy for the first week, 2 weeks of the year is slowly starting to disappear from a lot of entrepreneurs. What advice would you give besides the shifting mentally and just spiritually, or what advice would you give an entrepreneur that right now, 2 weeks into 2021, and they're like, wow, we're still on lockdown, the world is still, the US is going through haywire right now, like what advice would you give a young entrepreneur that's right now struggling to understand the gasp of that whole reshift? They had that in mind of the reshift. What advice would you give them?
Well, I'll always say that, I think, 2021, it is a mental reset, isn't it? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, people see it as oh, it's brand new year, brand new start. They kind of give themselves permission to do something. Yeah. But for the young entrepreneurs, listen to this. I mean, really, like you should be having 3, 6, 9, 12 month goals, right? Basically every quarter.
I love that. That's what
right. Because for these 3 months, for example, like one of my goals, like Clubhouse, I want to reach, I want to try and get to 100,000 people following. Right. So that's 3 months goals. Why do I want to do that? Because I know when I hit 100,000 people following, I've already connected with, you've heard me on there, yeah. Some of the big shots, in that room. And now we're doing collaboration deals. So I know that the bigger the following grows, the more distribution grows, the more the network grows, and ultimately the more impact and income that grows. Yeah. So that's why I'm spending so much time in there right now.
Let's dive into that quickly. Before we went on the air, I'm gonna actually, we actually pre-record like 6-7 weeks in advance, but I'm actually going to be airing your podcast in a couple of weeks. So I want to bump it up with Clubhouse. We went on there and as an entrepreneur, like I said, before we went on there, we were talking a little bit about it. As a new app, you could get very lost with time and distracted with time, and you have to put a value on your time as an entrepreneur. Where do you see the value besides the networking aspect, which is the massive, where do you see the value of that app, and where do you see that app continue to grow over the next, say, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? Not even for yourself, but as an app in general, helping entrepreneurs.
Well, for example, okay, let's talk about how, you follow me on social media, but I would never have found out about you if you were not on the app. The whole reason why we're having this conversation right now is because you were on the app and I was on the app. We shared some content. You said, hey, John, you asked a question and you said, I'd love to have you on my podcast. Then you sent me a message, and which I didn't see because I get thousands of people send me messages. And then you were present. You were there again and again and again and again and again. And the more I started to see you, I thought, oh, this guy is actually quite consistent. And so then I went into your profile to check out your Instagram, and sure enough, there were all your DMs. Right. And then I replied to it and you said, can I have you on my show? I said, sure. Here's my assistant's details. And then she set this up and now we're talking. Yeah. Right. So that's the power of, for you as an entrepreneur, being able to reach, the people that you want to reach to get on your show. Right. But it's also like for me is reaching, for example, I just finished, like I said, a feature film movie script, and there's people out there who I've met who's in the movie industry, in Hollywood, VCs, and so all the elements of there. So it's finding out what they want and how they can help. I'll give another example. So there was a big celebrity on there just now. I won't mention her name, but you probably know who she is. Yeah. But she just sent me a message saying, John, these big deals that you're investing into, can you get me contact into this big one that's happening? So again, I can't mention anything now. Yeah. But she sent me that message, and we would never be speaking if we hadn't have been on that platform. And so now that, if I'm able to make that introduction and she gets to be able to invest in that company, and then so can I, you see? So this is where, a lot of people are going on there, they're selling courses and selling consulting, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. That's just their business model. For me, I have a business model that does do that, but I don't use Clubhouse for that. I use Clubhouse for, connecting with the right people, and I go there to learn as well.
When were you first? This is such a new app. When were you first introduced, and how were you introduced to it?
Okay, so I'm part of this, network of all the top sort of, keynote speakers, events companies in the UK. And I got this message saying, "Oh my God, join this Clubhouse, secure your username." I was like, "What do you mean? Why is everyone blowing up about it?" This was December the 27th. Sorry, no, December the 26th, I got the message. I didn't, and then they kept talking about it. I'm like, okay, maybe I should go and have a look. So I went to try and get my name.
It's only a couple weeks then. Pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah. So then I checked my name. I see if let's see if I can get at John Lee, because normally you can't get at John Lee because it's such a common name, right?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, John Lee's gone. I thought, okay, so what else can I get? John_Lee. At least I got that one, right? So I got John_Lee. So I got my domain name, and then I waited maybe a day or so. Then I eventually get an invite into there. So I download the app, I get an invite, and I go in, and then people start talking like, "Oh my God, what's people talking? What's all this about?" So I put myself onto mute, and I just and then I just shut it down. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And then it wasn't until, because obviously it's Christmas time, December the 29th, 30th, around that range. I just woke up one day and I literally sat in the office and I just, okay, let's see what this thing's about. I turned it on and I saw this thing about, how to run $1 million business. I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. So I went into that, not thinking anything. And then and then I get this notification, you have been invited to be a speaker. I'm like, this is weird. So I click it and now I'm on stage, and then they're asking me questions like, "Hey, John, we just saw you on this platform. Welcome to the platform. We know you're really big on social media. You've done all these great things. Can I ask you a question?" I'm like, whoa. And that's when I thought, and then I was on there for about 10 hours answering questions.
That the same day?
Yeah, it was on all day, and I was like, Jesus. And so, and then then you know how it works. Then you get sucked into the platform.
So where I mean, obviously when you get to your level of social media, I'm assuming a lot of your content is run by your team.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I create the content, but they edit it and things, and they'll post it and do all the sort of scheduling.
So you still do your own DMs or no?
Yes and no. Like, for example, if I'm on Clubhouse at that time, so when you send that DM, then I would, because I'm live then, I went in DM and I'll see it. But most of the times I'll have, my team will sometimes check it. If like the general ones are the ones that are in the primary box, I'll check. So there's three. You've got the primary, you've got the general, and you've got the requested messages. So there's actually 3 lots of messages. So I'll personally handle the primary ones, and my team will maybe do the general, or sometimes I'll do the primary and general, but my team will go into the sort of requested messages.
This is awesome. I got 2 questions. I don't want to take too much more of your time because I'll probably see you on Clubhouse later on today. I got 2 questions for you, and usually we have an open conversation, and I think we learned quite a bit about you today. 2 questions I always try to ask all our guests. If something were to happen to you today, John, in a few simple words, how would you want to be described or remembered by your closest loved ones and friends?
That's a good question. I mean, for me, I always have this word impossible, right? And if you put the comma there, I'm possible. That's how I want to remembered as a source of inspiration and that light for people in their darkest hour.
I love that. It's very, very simple. Now, going back to something we talked about and we had a little passion about at the beginning, superpower. If you had one superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh. That's a good one. Superpower. I'd love to be able to stop time or freeze time or control time.
Yeah, I think I would love that.
Because then I can re-experience the moments again and again and again and just go back. And I'm fascinated, by the way, with like movies that have time travel in it. I'm just so fascinated with it. And I just wish that, wow, like sometimes like, and isn't that the thing? It doesn't matter how rich or it doesn't matter if you're a Warren Buffett or Elon Musk or a Jeff Bezos, like, every hour that goes by is gone forever. Every minute, every second.
I agree with that. It doesn't matter who you are, what stature you are. I have something I always say with everybody as well. Is like, I mean, we all have 24 hours in a day. How do we utilize it, and how we take it in is going to change how we are as an individual tomorrow, right? So I mean, that's one thing which is so precious, and a lot of people don't understand that. And I try to explain that to a lot of individuals, is you can't get back time. That's one thing we talked about, your parents, and I appreciate you going on vacation with them and spending that time with them, that allocated time, because I always hear a lot of individuals and friends of mine, and they'll come back to them, and they're one of their relatives or their family member will pass away, and they're like, oh, I wish I had more time. And that just angers me inside, because you had time when they were alive.
Yeah.
Why didn't you? I'm 43, John, and every morning on my way to the office and every night when I'm on my way home, I call my mom. Before I go to bed, I call my mom. My parents, I'm luckily live only about half an hour from us, and I still go down 2-3 times a week just to have a coffee for 5 minutes with my dad, because I understand, and I quickly understood that seeing a lot of my close friends losing closer relatives, like, time is so precious and you're not going to get that back. So appreciate the time you have with your loved ones and your family and all that. One little thing we're going to dive into before we go, 2 more seconds, is your wife. You said you have a very supportive wife. How is your wife involved in your businesses at all, or is she more just a supportive angle?
Well, I mean, she did have a good, a company that was doing well, really well, right? Closed one of the biggest contracts. And, when we had my daughter, we made a conscious decision that, we want to be the ones bringing our kids up, not a nanny, not an au pair. Like, we want to be the people. I mean, that may change when we have more kids. I mean, but I still want to be as actively involved as I can, I guess, those magical moments that you just don't want to forget. So, with my wife now, she's now become full-time mom, and she does support me, in my company and give suggestions, more of like an advisor level, if you will. But she's, I mean, I think being a mom is the hardest job in the world. It's harder than becoming an entrepreneur. It really is. You got kids, for women listen to this, my God, like it's like a business. All those hard times, it's like that. Just when you've got it, okay, another thing happens. When you got another thing happens, and
it's constant.
I'm so thankful to my wife to, I wouldn't be able to do what I do if she didn't support at that level.
I love it. This has been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate your success, and you're very humble. Like, just talking to you, you're just a humble person. Anybody that's going to watch us, and just by our conversation for the last 45 minutes, you're a very humble person, which it's very easily to get out of that when you get to a level of stature. So being humble, being a present father, which is so, to me, that probably means more than anything over our whole conversation today. I appreciate what you've done. And I appreciate you, like I said, giving back in a platform where you understand the value of education and having mentors, and you're giving that to everyone on a level where everybody could accept and use. Even if they're not at that level where they could afford it, they could still benefit from it. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Anything you want to say to our audience before we go?
I just want to say, anything that Jeff's putting out there, make sure that you listen to it. And thank you for taking these amazing guests that you've got with this amazing information and using that as a platform for good and educating people. I think we need more people like you to be able to extract this knowledge to help that next generation. And, we talk about generational wealth. What about generational education? That can stand the test of time, and really to make a dent in how people are educated, not just in school, and school and university is important, but also the other side of that as well, that continuing education. I think that's what's important. So thank you for having me as a guest and give me the platform to share my message and for helping other people do this as well. So I appreciate that, Jeff.
I love it. And one last thing is I appreciate how, like you said, continuing education is fantastic. And there's tons of life lessons you'll learn with the actual structured universities and colleges, but there's a lot of aspects when it comes to our educational system that don't prepare people for the real world. And I think your platform is doing that. From like, I'm an advocate where I'm always saying sales is one of the most important tactics that people should learn, and something that they should be teaching in school. Sales and public speaking and all these things. So you're giving a platform for people to learn this, that even high school kids, like parents, if any parents are listening to this, going to your platform for their children, or 14, 15-year-old, there's probably tons of knowledge they could build while they're in high school that'll prepare them for the rest of the world and the rest of their life. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much, brother.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, everybody. Bye for now.
Thank you.